We gotta give it up for Ubisoft to go ahead and give up the ghost in regards to how big of hacks they really are. Now, I understand we're going to be talking about Assassin's Creed Shadows here very, very soon, but I mean, in close proximity, we knew that Assassin's Creed Shadows was basically a cheap imitation of Ghost of Tsushima, so no, leave it up to their other big AAA release to say, oh no, we really do like that game, but it was the inspiration, trust us, the inspiration for Star Wars Outlaws, but nothing else, no whatsoever. We are totally different groups, don't look at it this way, and no. We're just ripping off that game, that very successful, very popular game. We're using it to bolster our failing Star Wars project. Yeah, good for you. And we've talked ad nauseum at this point about the failing and the upcoming failing of, Star Wars Outlaws release. And we'll be talking about it the more the hype cycle continues up to and including the launch, because it's going to be spectacular. Okay, we have a fair amount of controversy in regards to Shadows that we need to update ourselves on right now, because last time we talked about this specific controversy, this was the stolen flag from the Sekigahara Rifle Corps. Now Ubisoft had apologized and they said, oh no, don't worry, we're just gonna go ahead and get rid of any mentions of this in our game. We apologize, and instead of making good with that crew, we're just going to go ahead and get rid of it until we don't get rid of it, and we're just going to tell you to go to hell if you think that you're entitled to your cultural heritage, because that's what we strive for. You remember that apology that they released for this? Okay, we strive for historical accuracy. We strive for authenticity until it comes to, holding us to our word. Ubisoft rejects request to remove stolen Japanese reenactment group's banner from Assassin's Creed Shadows art book, claims files have already been deleted, but we're not getting rid of it, so don't worry about it. And why does Yasuke always look so creepy? Anyways, Ubisoft has reportedly denied a request from a Japanese historical reenactment group whose banner graphic they used without permission in production of Assassin's Creed Shadows concept art to remove said graphic from the game's collector's edition art book. Well, yeah, we already got those printed, and it's like, it'd be really tough for us to, run back those books, even though we're months out from release. It's like, come on, cut us some slack, right? As previously reported, the Sekigahara Tepokai, the Rifle Corps, is the Japanese reenactment group dedicated primarily to teaching the public about the use of matchlock rifles during the Battle of Sekigahara, a historically significant conflict whose outcome marked the beginning of the Tokugawa shogunate's centuries-long rule over Japan. Well, that sounds like they're actually paying homage to some of their traditional Japanese history, hence why Shadows would like to try to appropriate that. Much to the group's surprise, upon the reveal of Assassin's Creed Shadows, a first batch of promotional materials, they discovered, under the hip-hop inspired music, that Ubisoft had wholesale swiped their custom banner as flown during their reenactments and depicted it in games being flown by a random infantry unit. So yeah, not even using it appropriately, but hey, we're paying homage to shut up. Following outcry from both players and the SRC themselves, Ubisoft would eventually offer a direct apology to the group for their blatant theft. In turn, the group not only accepted Ubisoft's apology, but also agreed to allow the unaltered concept art to feature their banner in the included Shadows Collector's Edition art book. We have been notified that the flag of the Sekigahara Tepotai has been used without permission in 2 pieces of Assassin's Creed Shadows concept art that have already been released, tweeted the official Ubisoft Japan Twitter account on July 8th, as machine translated, of course, by DeepL. We have given the dev team an opportunity to apologize and have accepted the situation. With the exception of the artwork being included in the art book in the collector's edition, there will be no further use or distribution of the artwork. We sincerely apologize for this manner. However, just 3 days later, a member of the SRC would reveal that we had another discussion with the Sekigahara Rifle Corps, and we have asked Ubisoft to remove the pictures used in the art book of the collector's edition. I don't know if this is possible, but I have contacted them through support. Yeah, we talked about this at the time as well. Unfortunately for the group, per the members' own tweet history, rather than receiving any assistance from Ubisoft, they would instead be met with a roughly 2.5 weeks of complete radio silence, which is where we pick this story up. On July 28th, Ubisoft finally got back to the above SRC member's message, but instead of offering help, the member claims he was instead met with a range of excuses from Ubisoft as to why his request for the banner's removal could not be accommodated. I received a call from UBI's software support today. The content is as follows. I printed it out and I can't delete it now. It's difficult to distinguish from the text of the image. We have deleted the image from the system managed by Ubisoft software. I'm sorry that you're disappointed by our blatant theft, and we promise not to do it again until, of course, there comes a point in time where it's unavoidable. Their attempts to work with Ubisoft directly having gone nowhere, the group has since taken to reaching out to Assassin's Creed Shadows' Japanese distributor Square Enix for help. What? That's interesting. Since it seemed like it would not be able to make progress with UBI software alone, we contacted Square Enix. The company will be distributing the game in Japan for support. That's interesting. As of writing, it appears Square Enix is yet to respond to SRC's plea for help. Meanwhile, Matchlock Kage has confirmed a lawsuit over the matter is likely out of the question, as neither he nor the group have the time or money to weather a lengthy legal battle. But I would imagine that this is probably this story. This isn't the last time we're going to be hearing about this because, well, we know, once again, referencing that apology that Ubisoft Japan tweeted out a couple of weeks back, they like to take things from history and recreate them as authentically as possible, and given the fact you got a black samurai there, I guess he wanted to pay homage to his proclivity to steal. But I just wonder how thoroughly they're going to take the word of an actual Japanese historian, not Thomas Lockley, somebody who fantasizes about being the sheath to Yasuke's sword, but somebody who, I don't know, actually studied feudal Japan, who knows a thing or two about a thing or two. But Japanese historian Yūichi Goza speculates that Yasuke was simply Oda Nobunaga's bodyguard and entertainer rather than a samurai, as he is depicted in Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I mean, I thought that's what was understood up until, the blackwashing campaign that Ubisoft has been running for the past couple of months. It's like, that's what Yasuke always was. It's like, yeah, there was a black guy in Japan, but Nobunaga kind of kept him on as a novelty to show him off to the public, not understanding that, people's skin can be black. Like, that's the way that he was depicted in all of the historical text until, of course, no, there was a black samurai and he was definitely gay, trust us. Japanese historian Yūichi Goza speculates that Yasuke was not a samurai, as video game developer Ubisoft has claimed, but was rather just Nobunaga's bodyguard and entertainer. In an interview with Japanese website, the Sanken Shimbun translated, Goza, who is a faculty member at the International Research for Japanese Studies, focusing on Japanese medieval history, and the author of What is a Samurai, was asked what kind of person was Yasuke, and was he a samurai or not. Goza responded, there are very few historical records about Yasuke, so it is difficult to say. The history of Yasuke has not been the subject of much research, in part because the history of personalities is not in the mainstream of historical studies. In the 15-volume Nobunaga Koki, the collection of the Sonoke Kaku Bunko, which is one of the biographies of Nobunaga Koki, a chronicle of Nobunaga's life, there is a description of Nobunaga giving Yasuke a sword and a house, indicating that he treated him as a samurai. However, this is something that only appears in this biography among the dozens of manuscripts of the Nobunaga Chronicle, and we cannot deny the possibility that it was added later when the manuscript was transcribed. Also, even if he was a samurai, he may have been a formality. For example, in the Edo period, feudal lords who were fond of sumo had their own personal wrestlers. Formally, they were treated as vassals or samurais and allowed to wear a sword. But even if a war broke out, it was not expected that the feudal lords would allow their retainers to fight on the battlefield, and that is something else that has been established from history, that the moment that there was a skirmish breakout, what did Yasuke do? Did he fight valiantly? Nope, he just surrendered because he wasn't a samurai, he was simply a retainer. When asked about the magnificent armor that Ubisoft depicts Yasuke wearing in Shadows, and what position he actually held under Nobunaga, Goza responded, the Japanese people around Nobunaga were very surprised by Yasuke's dark skin and seemed to be interested in it. In a sense, it was a show. Having a black man like Yasuke so close to him would attract attention and, in a sense, show off Nobunaga's power. In a sense, Nobunaga could show off his power. Therefore, I believe that the most important purpose was to show off to everyone. In the Jesuit historical records, it is written that Yasuke was powerful and could do a few tricks. I believe that he was, in fact, Nobunaga's bodyguard and entertainer. He was not a samurai warrior that Westerners imagine him to be, slaying one enemy after another. Even if he did fight, he did not command his men, but worked as a single combatant. So he might have been a soldier, and that's even disputed. Furthermore, Goza shared his thoughts on the backlash of Assassin's Creed Shadows. That includes a petition calling for Ubisoft to cease production of the game. The petition currently has over 102,000 signatures. Wow, we talked about that when it had, 15,000? It's popular, more popular than this game is going to be. Okay, so Goza said, I understand that many people think that if you want to respect the samurai culture, the main character should be a Japanese samurai, especially since the story is based on a real person, and it would be more natural to have famous swordsmen samurai such as Miyamoto Musashi, yes, as the main character rather than a black man named Yasuke, whose actual character is not known. If Yasuke, who may or may not have been a samurai, is made to be a representative of the samurai, it would be like taking something away from the Japanese samurai culture. Therefore, I think it is natural that some Japanese and foreign people would react with discomfort and dissatisfaction when they hear the word cultural theft being used in the film. Game, I guess, translation error. Even if Yasuke were to appear in the game, it should have been in the form of a Japanese samurai as the main character, and Yasuke as well. Yeah, exactly, as the retainer that history knows him to be. Goza was then asked about various forms of media aside from video games, including movies, TV shows, and novels adopting stories that are contrary to historical facts, and what his thoughts are of this. And yeah, talks about Hirazumi, Genghis Khan, okay, Yoshitsune became Genghis Khan, all of that stuff as well. But yeah, there are ways that you can tell those stories where you could take liberties with some history, but to take such extreme examples like this in order to try to fit a more Western acceptable message, well, that's not something that you would normally do. You would only expect that from an ideological, driven developer like Ubisoft, which Pirate Nation raises the question, are they the worst video game company, especially one that's out there right now? I can't think. Okay, like worst is obviously it's a subjective term, but when it comes to a studio not releasing a hit, like a game that sticks out in the zeitgeist, like when was the last time Far Cry was anything to write home about? Okay, maybe with the relaunch of Assassin's Creed was the last time that Ubisoft had anything going for them, but outside of that, when was the last time they were really driving the market? It's been a long time. But yeah, just running down this fairly extensive bullet point list, okay, we got to ask ourselves a question. Is Ubisoft the dirt worst? Market cap has reverted back to what it was 10 years ago. Ugh. And we're not even factoring in, what's currently going on with the markets. Hasn't released anything worthy since Black Flag. Yeah, because that received universal aplomb. Everything after that, varying degrees of success. Do Assassin's Creed games sell? Yes, absolutely they do. The last one that people en masse were looking forward to, yeah, probably Black Flag, because it definitely wasn't Unity. Oh boy, that was in disrepair. I hear decent things about Syndicate, but even after the relaunch with Origins and Odyssey, Valhalla, don't hear great things about them. It hasn't created a globally recognized new IP since Watch Dogs in 2014, 10 years ago, and oh boy, that was probably a big chink in the armor, no pun intended, when Ubisoft, oh my god, what was that back? E3 2010? When they first let the cat out of the bag on that one, where, oh my god, look at that, looks genuinely next gen. Oh my god, it might have been 2012 or something like that, okay? Because there were a couple successive years when Ubisoft would have their press conference and then they end on the big cliffhanger. And when when Watch Dogs trailers first hit, that was transcendent, okay? All the fabric, all the textures, everything that you could do with, I forget the protagonist's what his name was, but what he could do with his cell phones, making bullards in the middle of the road just appear, changing traffic lights, the total interconnectivity of the entire city at the tip of one man's fingers, that was revolutionary. And then the game came out, and well, yeah, The Division, released in 2016, was created way before Massive Entertainment got acquired by Ubisoft. Interesting. Yeah, that one, that was a live service game before live service games really caught on. And, well, anyways, took 300 million euros from Tencent in 2022. Okay, so partially owned now by the Chinese Communist Party. Sold 500 million euros of obligations in 2024. Okay, so offloading their debt. Not great. Have hired up to 20,000 employees with EEI, oh no, way too big, isn't even able to release a barely decent product anymore despite having doubled their headcount. Yeah, and I'm really thinking, when was the last quality Ubisoft game to come out? One that really had any sort of a positive impact on the market? I can't think of any. I literally can't. Their engines have always been behind those, or behind everyone in the 2010s, and have already stalled for 5 years now. I've made the arguments. The worst thing that happened to Ubisoft was the consecutive successes of Far Cry 3 and Assassin's Creed 2, meaning that they would never have to iterate on their formula. They knocked it out of the park with those two games. But then, looking back, that's just about a decade and a half ago at this point, have even regressed. See Star Wars Outlaws gameplay footage. Though, to be fair, they aren't the only company regressing. But yeah, no, definitely for them to have the audacity to say, look at how fantastic this is, and then just roll out something that wouldn't look uncomfortable getting pushed out of an original Xbox. That should be their marketing going forward. Oh, look at that, the Star Wars Outlaws, it plays great on an Xbox One. It'll run smoothly on that hardware. Do you mean Xbox One? No, we mean the first one. So yeah, the Xbox One. Sabotage their own product with absurdly ridiculous political takes on Japanese history because they trust some random gaijin and made up stories. Their artwork, literally made out of Google images, stolen ones at that, completely mixes up Japanese, Chinese, and Korean culture, yes, with their architecture takes. It's like we strive for historical accuracy. We just don't bother double checking our work. Season pass for a solo game, which we've seen before. In my previous Star Wars video, offer you to pay $30 for the privilege to access their unfinished game 3 days before release. Yeah, if you pre-order the deluxe edition, you can play it on Thursday when everybody else is going to have to wait until, they could play it on the old release date of Tuesday instead of having to wait for Friday now. 130 euros for a full-featured game. Yes, the ultimate pack embraced degeneracy such as loot boxes, NFTs, microtransactions, scratch games on mobile. Ubisoft Connect, yes, formerly Uplay. Oh, that's what they changed their awful launcher to. Add pop-ups and menus during gameplay. I beg your pardon? I haven't seen that one yet. Tells you to get comfortable with not owning your game. Yes, you paid for. Deletes your games from your inventory, and no, not just the crew. Oh, right, completely delists their games. Like, even when Steam no longer has license to a game to sell it. Like, I have the Deadpool game. I don't know if they ever updated that or if they got that all figured out, but yeah, they had to delist it from the store. But even still, like, if I switch computers or anything like that, I can still download the game that I purchased because I bought the license to that. Just because they can't continue to sell it doesn't mean that I lose access to my games. But apparently Ubisoft doesn't take that same approach. Doesn't make any effort to provide an offline mode or any fallbacks when shutting a game down, which enrages players so much that they want a new law against it. So yeah, is Ubisoft the worst? I don't know, man, but there's a pretty good list, and I wouldn't fault you for saying that they're even worse than EA was back at their height, because at least EA was putting out games that people wanted to play. For every bump in the road that they had, you would get a Battlefield 1, you would get a Titanfall 2, you would get the general playability of their yearly sports release slop, which, yeah, basically do devolve into yearly roster updates, but reliably fun to play? That's not something you can say with a Ubisoft game, because they haven't iterated on their once successful formula. They've continued to make incredibly stupid business decisions. And they're banking on a quite successful 2024 with Outlaws and Shadows coming out. So I'm just wondering, man, with the amount of money that they owe, with the amount of EEI hires that they have brought on recently in the past decade or so, how they have doubled their work count but slowed their output. Are they going to be next on the chopping block? Are they going to be the studio to be acquired in 2024? Tough to say right now. We're just going to have to wait and see once Outlaws drops at the end of this month, and when Shadows eventually has to be unveiled to the world towards the end of the year. It's going to be a studio to watch, and when those sales numbers eventually do roll in, oh, it's going to be fun to dissect that stuff. Probably even more fun than the games themselves. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.